Okay, comments from the public, 6.1.5. Members of the public who would like to speak in support of or opposition to the petition will now have an opportunity to speak. I ask that each speaker keep his or her comments to 2 minutes so that we may accommodate all who wish to speak. The timekeeper will give each speaker a 15-second warning. Do I have? Is really good.
Yes. When can we ask the petition? After the comment?
I beg your pardon. Did I put the cart before the horse here?
Do we want to ask them first?
Petitioners. I believe so. I believe we should back up here. Yes. Board, you have an opportunity now to ask the petitioners any questions. I apologize. Let's start with Ms. Rulli, and then we'll go to Mr. Gomes, Ms. Marabella, myself. Is that okay if we go in that order?
No.
No.
I want to ask about Windrush. Is there any connection with Windrush with Summit, like in terms of programs or board of directors or overlapping of anything with Windrush?
Great question. I'm so glad we get to clarify that, and thank you for this time. Windrush was a private school. It closed. That space was then up for sale. The Chamberlains, Steve and Susan Chamberlain, bought that space. We at Summit Public Schools have been in conversation with them about using that space temporarily to get ourselves started. Every one of our 6 schools has started in temporary space, and then as we've grown, we've transitioned. One of the hardest parts about running a charter school in the beginning is you only start with 1 grade, and we ladder up so we can ensure that that college-going culture is there, and we can make sure that we can make a promise that we can uphold. So what we've looked at is working with the Chamberlains, who now own that space, for us to lease it from them. Those conversations have begun. One of the things that they are doing that is absolutely unbelievable is they are talking about leasing it at a rate that we as a public charter school can afford, without going and accessing millions of additional dollars from outside donors, and without using tons of state funding, which is taken out of the classroom, because charter schools do have to take their dollars for buildings out of instructional practice. And so they have done an unbelievably great job. In terms to directly address your question, Windrush is closed. I believe that board is dissolved. I've never spoken to anyone who has anything to do with Windrush. The folks we've spoken to are the Chamberlains with regards to this. Our Summit Public Schools board, which is in the charter that we've given to you, is in charge of this school, is the direct backers of Summit K2.
The application, the sample application that you have here, specifically asks the student if it requires special education, services. Now, in a way that identifies who are the kids who are in special ed and who are the kids in not in special ed. Do you have a special lottery for them, or because why would you ask at this point, at the application point?
Let me address one piece and then I'll let Kelly go. Because this is so near and dear to our heart. Kelly is going to talk about the specific demographics of the schools, the 2 schools that she has worked at with regards to our special ed population. We asked that question for 2 reasons. Dr. Delgado brought up the statistics from the district and one of the existing charter schools, I'm not sure which. Our numbers far outpace those and far outpace the districts in which we reside. We asked that question so we can know, are we properly recruiting students who have special needs, and we can know in the lottery process as we are collecting applications, are we doing enough to actively reach out to families and students with special needs to ensure that they know this is a school where they can be successful. And then the second is we have a robust special education team who does all of the transitional IEPs over the summer. They ensure that they go meet with families at their existing middle schools in the spring. They bring families in or they go visit families to ensure that from day one we are starting with a plan for that child that sets them up for success. We know that there is potential for this to feel like something that might push someone out. But the benefits that we have seen when we can talk to families openly and honestly, when we can plan, when our team knows how to and really supports that child for months before they even begin a day in one of our classrooms is tremendous.
And the only piece I will add, I guess 2 pieces, is that the schools I have previously worked for, like Diego said, significantly outpace the district in terms of special ed enrollment. The school I've been most recently at, the district is a little bit above 10% sped. I'm almost closer to 20%. So it is a population actually that has been growing every single year in our schools because our model works so well for special education students that they are in droves coming to our programs. So certainly want to clarify that in our schools, we absolutely welcome and support that learning difference. Absolutely.
You talked about weighted lottery being used at Everett. This is weighted lottery in terms of what? To make sure you mimic the race, the income, or the needs, the academic needs of the student. What do you mean by this weighted lottery? And is this something that you will be using if here for Summit?
Certainly. So we looked at the phrasing of weighted for anyone who would get a preference, basically. And in this case, preferences go to 2 groups. And these are both in the charter. Anyone who's considered a founding family, I want to really set the record straight on what that is. There are 4 or 5 founding families of this school. Myself, Diego, and a couple other people related to Summit Public Schools. So there is no one in El Cerrito, in Richmond, in West County who is a founding family that's going to get any preference to enroll in our school. The other weighted category is siblings. And that's only for the future. So if you have not this year because there are no currently enrolled students, but the following year, if you have a currently enrolled sibling, then you get a weight in the lottery. But in terms of any other demographic category that you could come up with, there is absolutely 0 preference, just the sibling piece.
And in districts. Oh, please forgot in district.
And district.
We have put this in line with the Public Charter Schools Grant Program, so we worked extensively with the California Department of Ed and the folks at the federal government who run PCSGP to ensure that our lottery system matches up exactly with state and federal law. What that means is we actually are not allowed, even if we wanted to, we would not be allowed to say we are giving a preference to African American students or special education students or Latino students. We have not done that. We've given a weighted preference to an in-district student versus an out-of-district student, and to siblings and founding families versus those who are not those. The whole goal of our recruitment plan, which is in Appendix W and is described in the charter, I've said Appendix W now twice. I'm really hopeful I'm right that that's Appendix W. The whole goal of it, though, is that we go and collect our applications. We do this through really targeted outreach. So we have community meetings. We send out flyers. We put out ads in the newspaper and on the radio in English and in Spanish and in other languages if the district demands that it's appropriate for that district. We go work with community centers. We work with Boys and Girls Clubs. We find every way we can to collect applications that reflect the district. As we're collecting those applications, we look for a reflection of the district. And if we see that they are not currently reflective of the district, we then focus our efforts to go recruit in areas where we have not been successful. This is the way that you will see that we have schools where if the district is 52% Latino, we are right around 52% Latino. This is why in all of our schools, if the district is 48% free and reduced lunch, we are right around 48% free and reduced lunch. We are working as best we can in a targeted fashion to let the lottery work its magic, and to just collect as many applications as we can that truly reflect the district. This issue of the signature page is troubling because we've had multiple conversations with Dr. Delgado, and it all stemmed from a conversation with the board member who said he's willing to reach out to all of you, so I'll encourage him to do as such. This particular board member, Todd Groves, met with myself and said, I don't care about that, we don't care about that, just get the bare minimum you need. And so I said, great, that sounds easy. I would prefer to just get, if you told me to get 60, we got 90. And I said, great. We've never found, in running 6 schools up and down the Bay Area, we have never found that getting more signatures turns into more students on day one. Asking those folks a year and a half ahead of time whether they're interested in a charter petition is a very different question than asking them, do you truly want to send your child here? So we haven't invested our effort there. Where we have invested our effort is Kerry has been up here twice a week for the last 3 weeks, meeting with families, holding community meetings. She's going to be up here twice a week for the next few weeks at community centers, at churches, already collecting applications and doing this work. And we believe that this is the hard work it takes to truly reach out to communities and make this an option that can be reflective of the district.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's just one thing I want to add, just to take a step back for a second, in that we have 6 existing schools, all driven by the same people and the same mission, and not a single one of those schools has been or ever will be for wealthy, white, privileged students. Ever. And so it's painful, I think, for us to keep having the same argument. K2 is not a rogue school in this organization, that all of a sudden, after 11 years, we're going to have one exclusive school just for white kids who live in the Hill. So if we just kind of take a step back and actually look at the big picture of our organization, it's hurtful, actually, to have people reiterate over and over that somehow this school has a different mission or vision than any of the other schools that any of us have worked in for the last decade. So I just wanted to really reiterate that.
May I interrupt you? This
Sure.
is time for board members to ask questions, so rather than...
Sorry.
Well,
Actually, yeah, sorry, we're done.
Okay.
One more.
Yes, go ahead.
In terms of weighted lottery, is the zip code used in a weighted lottery? Is that allowed by the charter school so that you can have kids from different locations? That's not allowed?
No. The only thing that is allowed by PCSGP is there is an allowance, and one of the charter schools in West County utilizes it to give a preference to a student coming from a Title I school. And again, because we seek to truly reflect the entire district, that's never been where we've gone, is to say we want 100% of students from a Title I school. But let's be clear, we wrote on page 19 exactly the demographics of the district and said those are the demographics that we should be meeting. And so we would expect our authorizer to hold us to that. And we would expect the community to hold us to that. That if through our recruitment efforts and our weighted lottery, we are not meeting the demographics of the district as listed there, 20% African American, 50% Latino, 11% white, 71% socioeconomically disadvantaged. If we're not doing that, we would expect to be held to account, and really we would be failing, and we would want to work harder to address that. You're welcome.
Okay. I think both of you have said that in the when you're mentioning Summit schools as to how long you've been in a charter school organization, I think you both said 10 years, okay, and that you have 6 schools located throughout the Gray area. In terms of those 6 schools, can you give us an idea of how old, how long they've been established, and what their grade levels are?
Sure. So Summit Prep is our original school, and it opened 11 years ago. It is grades 9 through 12. Our second school to open was Everest, and it is in its 5th year, having grades 9 through 12. Our third and fourth school opened in Eastside San Jose 3 years ago, and they currently have 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. And then this fall, we had our first middle school open, serving, the school will eventually serve 6 through 12, but they started with 6th graders, and they are in Sunnyvale. And then we had our 6th school open this fall in Daly City, and they are serving 9 through 12, but 100 ninth graders this year. Okay,
fine. Now, another question I have is, I believe it was you, Ms. Garcia, said that you have been, you've appealed to at least 2 other levels besides the the district, to the county and also to the state. Can you tell me how many times to the state and how many times to a county, and what the reasons were for rejections by the county and you're going to the state, and also the reasons given by the districts? If you can do that easily.
I can do it a little bit more
succinctly,
easily. Summer Prep was adopted by the district. Everest was denied by the district, denied by San Mateo County. They really didn't give many findings of fact, in all honesty. Was then accepted by the state, to the point the state then spent that time, uses Everest charter petition as the gold standard when folks call and say, what should a charter petition look like? They use that Everest charter petition. And they spent the rest of the time saying, how can we get districts and counties to not pass stuff up to us like this?
What about the others?
Rainier and Tahoma. Rainier was accepted by the district. Tahoma, which was the exact same charter petition with 900 parents signing a petition to say, let's come to East San Jose, was denied with no comment. They just denied it. That went up to the county, and it was approved unanimously at the county. Denali was approved at the county as a county-wide benefit, so it went directly to the county. Shasta was approved at the district level.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have some questions on the budget. I see that you have startup funds that are very significant, and that they'll last you through 5 years. What are you going to do the 6th year?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our financial model is built on, after that 5th year, we can operate on the state dollar. So economies of scale basically have reached their limit, and so we were actually really proud of that fact, that we don't have to raise additional funds. We do operate on the state dollar.
So there's no fundraising that parents have to do, or?
I should say, yes, there's a little bit, but it's not like a massive amount. We do have like an annual campaign where we ask people to give what they can, anywhere from $1 to whatever else they can give, just to have like a fundraising, our PTA, if you will.
There's no requirement for fundraising. It is up to a school leader to make that decision, and our board, by mandate, has said that they are not raising additional dollars to support schools existing, because we fundamentally believe that public schools should run on public dollars, and if we're going to expect to work with districts, and districts are working on public dollars, then we should be working on public dollars as well.
The other area on page 73 in your CC, you don't have to look it up, board members, but it's on facilities. And I would like to understand what you state that the square footage you need is 64 square feet per school, and in years 2, 4, and 6 you'll add square footage needed for that comprehensive high school. How many classrooms do you need ultimately for the high school for a comprehensive program?
What's interesting about that question is we're doing unique things with space. So some of our schools don't have traditional spaces where you would say we need 17 classrooms of this particular width and length. Some of our schools have large open space. So I don't actually have an actual answer, because it will depend on, as the program academically involves, how we want to uniquely use that space.
And you stated that Windrush you would actually grow out of that. I would be asking county staff, how do we plan ahead? What are your thoughts for the next site?
It's a great question. So this is part of what my team works on, is facilities, which is the least fun part of charter schools completely. It is extremely difficult to find a building. We work with districts through Prop 39 to discuss that. This is this is actually the first time that we have begun conversations with someone who has a building that can temporarily start us at that particular location at a dollar amount that we can afford. So we're very excited that we would then have a launch pad to find the next spot that we're going to move into and to identify all of those. And again, we have 6 schools in existence. Take the 2 brand new ones out of it. 4 schools in existence that all started in temporary space, and within 2 to 3 years, depending on the school, moved into an alternate space that they identified during those first 2 to 3 years, either in working with the district through Prop 39 or in identifying another privately leased facility that met the needs of the larger student population.
Then I'd like to, I'd like to talk about the Windrush, and I know that school served K-8, and they served 248 students. I think Delgado said 300 is the max. So at what year, I didn't look it up, what year will you be maxing out? What grade? I don't have it in front. Oh, yeah, I do. So you would be maxing out before 2016, correct? On page 18.
If those numbers were told, certainly. As we understand it, the Chamberlains are in conversations with the city of El Cerrito to see what that space can accommodate, to see what the city's concerns and wishes are for that space and how that can work out. We have stayed out of that entirely, focusing on just running a great school, knowing that this is a temporary site that we are very excited about if it is a possibility for us.
Okay, and I want my colleagues to know that this site is a half a mile away from the brand new Fordula junior high that's being built, and it means on Richmond Elm Street traffic congestion, and I think that needs to be looked at also when we're looking at that particular site. I mentioned, and I am concerned about the racial ethnic balance. We're very familiar with that, so I'll be asking and looking forward to our county office's suggestions on that.
Can I speak to one thing around that with this particular location? You mentioned that Porto is a half mile away and Kennedy High School is 0.9 miles away in the other direction. Mm-hmm. It's the closest junior high and high school within the district to this particular location. The district's demographic for free and reduced lunch is just around 70%. Porto is at 61% as of last year. Kennedy's at 73%. So the 2 schools that are pulling from that closest area are actually serving a combined population of around 65% or the high 60% in free and reduced lunch population. So for us, that leaves us incredibly confident that if we go into that area, actually closer to a BART station and closer to bus lines that drop off at the BART, that we would be able to serve a similar student population that is served at those 2 schools.
Well, to be honest, I'm concerned about the closure of Kennedy, and I'll just say it outright. We have fought very hard to keep that school open. So that is my concern also. It's not in code that it would harm the district, but in my point of view, it may harm the district.
And we have no intention now or ever in the future of closing schools, or that being the effect of this.
You wouldn't be closing it, so I'm just concerned about the effects it may have. So I don't have any more questions at this point.
Board Member Elster.
Yes. I guess I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Dr. Delgado. What is your intended enrollment when you begin at 14-15?
I intend to enroll 120 7th graders.
But according to her, we've got 20 signed up. So I guess your trip twice a week is to recruit?
Well, let's not confuse signed up with actual applications. So 20 students or 20 parents who have students who would be 7th graders in 2014 signed the petition. I have dozens of applications, and these students who are behind me can tell you that they've already turned in applications for our school. So that is significantly different. I don't want to confuse signed up for the school, because that's actually applications, and I have dozens of them, I think close to like 40, versus who signed a petition. Those are two very separate issues.
Okay, and since you brought it up, this is my second one. As I look out there, I see the kids in the T-shirts, which reminds me of many flavors of sherbet ice cream. Okay. But then, in fact, I was out there trying to park when the black limousine bus pulled up. And now I'm finding that most of these kids are from a different charter school. They're not actually Summit kids. So I guess, bless you, I guess my question is, what was your thinking, what was your strategy on bringing these lovely sherbet kids here? They're very well behaved.
Yeah.
Show them, in math.
So the charter school that a fair number of the students who are here are from, and we have families and students from other places as well, is Richmond College Prep, which is a K through 6 school. So it ends in the 6th grade. Richmond College Prep turns away hundreds of students every single year. So one of the things that we knew absolutely is that there's a group of students who have said that they want a different experience and that they needed a school that better met their needs. Those families know that, but at the end of 6th grade, they didn't have a spot to go. Well, we are proposing to open a 7th through 12th grade school where a number of those students could come. So we have tried to start smart as to where we have begun our conversations. So Kelly has spent an inordinate amount of time with Building Blocks for Kids, which is an amazing cooperative in the middle, in the Iron Triangle in Richmond, has held outreach meetings there, has worked with parent leaders there. She has spent a lot of time with the folks at Richmond College Prep and these families to tell them about the opportunities that might exist if they so chose. So these are students and families who want additional choices when 7th grade rolls around.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Rombula, Ms. Garcia, earlier in your testimony, you mentioned that Todd Groves, a board member of
Contra Costa.
And I think he said, we don't care. Was he suggesting he was speaking for the entire board?
That's the impression that we got.
So unofficially he was saying we support this issue of the signatures or whatever, right?
Well, I reached out to Dr. Delgado and all of the board members and the superintendent before we applied, saying that we were considering it, and just as I had spent months, so I was meeting with folks from as early as January, just as I had spent months meeting with folks in the community from El Cerrito, San Pablo, and Richmond, I wanted to reach out to folks at the district to ask, what's going on in this district? Is there an opportunity to collaborate? I want to be very clear, we've made more collaborative gestures than just sharing sports teams. We have a lot of programs that we have that we've offered to share for free. So we had all of those initial conversations. In sitting down with Todd Groves before we submitted our charter petition, we began talking, and I said, here's what we've been doing. We certainly want to work with the district. How can we make that happen best? And so he said, you don't need to worry about bringing out a ton of people. You don't need to worry about getting a ton of charter petition signatures. Those things don't matter. You all run great schools. We know you run great schools, and there's demand for schools like yours.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I do. About Windrush, what kind of area do they have for sports for 7th graders through 12th graders?
They have, and it would be the first school that we're ever in, they have a real gymnasium. Mm-hmm. They have a large field. And I think that would be, I think the gymnasium, it would be the first of its kind in any of our charter schools, an actual on-site. For sports, we usually contract out to community organizations to use their space for fees.
And what about the new building? How many rooms are in that new building versus the old building?
I'd have to go look. I believe there are close to a dozen classrooms in the newest structure that was built.
That was built for junior high kids.
Yeah, I believe that was built for junior high kids. But in all honesty, again, I'll say, we have spent no time with folks who ran Windrush, who owned Windrush, so that's just what I've heard and what I believe. I'm pretty confident there are 10 to 12 classrooms, all of incredibly ample size on that side, built, to platinum LEED standards. It's pretty amazing, the status of that building.
I would be asking staff to also look at the facilities and have more details for that.
So if it turns out that any part or all of those buildings at Windrush turn out to be deficient so far as earthquake safety and any other construction safety requirements for schools, do you know if Chamberlain Foundation is willing to make those repairs before you move in?
So let's just be abundantly clear. We would never put students in a building that was unsafe for them.
Okay.
Just absolutely never. It is absolute priority one to guarantee a family who has made a choice that they can ensure that their child is safe.
Okay, so if Chamberlain does not do any required safety measures, you'll find another spot.
So two things. The Chamberlains have said that they would repair it, and they would repair it above and beyond code if needed,
Okay.
because that's their driving factor as well. And secondly, yes, we will certainly work to find additional locations, both in the short and in the long term. And bear in mind, as we submit charter petitions, and this is our 7th go-around with this timeline of submitting and beginning to look for buildings now for temporary location is exactly consistent with what we've done and where we've opened 6 of our schools.
Fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have another question. Ms. Rue, do you have a further question for him? Okay. Speaking of safety, would your school be modernized for lockdown, all-call, teachers being able to lock themselves into a classroom? God forbid that we have what's happened in schools before. Will you have that kind of safety in place in your school?
Every one of our schools has a school site safety plan that has adjusted for, and I think we live in a new world today. Even 9 years ago when I started at Summit Prep, we didn't have in place some of the protections that we currently have in place at all of our existing schools, and we will have it in place for Summit K2, whether it's located at 1800 Elm or elsewhere. We believe it is critical to families, so that includes lockdown procedures, that includes Code Blue, that includes everything we would need to do, both from a structural standpoint, but also from the practices that we as a school know and implement to ensure that students are safe.
I don't have any further questions. Board? Okay, then we will move to, thank you.
For which was the denial?
Oh, it was sent to us separately.
I'm sorry, what is it? Does this
Is it the
pertain?
envelope?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the board member was asking why the denial was not put in with it. It's because when the board denied us on August 12th, they didn't actually have written findings of fact. They actually passed those at the next board meeting on September 12th, I believe. And so we didn't get those until after we had submitted the charter petition. We then immediately passed those along to folks here at the county, and that's why those were submitted in a different packet. Thanks.
Are we ready to move to comments from the public?
Yes.
Thank you. 6.1.5.